you've got to stop and celebrate wins, little wins. I always am pressing. It's just the nature of who I am. And I often forget about the little wins. And it's so destructive to people, because when you're always pressing, it feels like you're always moving the goalposts instead of celebrating what people are doing. So I've asked my team to make sure, do what you need to do. To say, Tom, take a deep breath.
Hello. Welcome to another knowledge episode of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential and together change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have Thomas Ulbrich.
And if this is your first time, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of these amazing episodes. And if you're on iTunes, go ahead and rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps get the word out to great leaders and entrepreneurs like yourself.
Please help me welcome Thomas with Transformative Leadership Driving Social Impact.
This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
I am President and CEO right now of Goodwill of Western New York in Buffalo, New York. And sort of a quick background, and we can dig more in if you want to, but a quick background. I've been an entrepreneur, a small business owner, an educator. So I was assistant dean for 12 years at the University of Buffalo School of Management. Focused a lot in entrepreneurship and social innovation. And I'm been married to my wife for many, many years. We've got two boys and 6 grandkids. And along the way, when I think about my career and my journey in leadership, there's been impactful people along the way. So the first person that impacted me was in high school that got me very interested in leadership, and that was a coach in sports. I played football for a couple of years, but I swam for 4 years. And on the swimming team, I wasn't the greatest athlete in the world, but I loved being on a team. I loved rallying people together. And one day the coach tapped me on my shoulder, the senior year, and said, "I'd like you to be the captain." And I'm like, "The captain? I'm not the best athlete on the team." And my brain was always like, the best athlete is the leader, right? So I think that person very, very early in my life inspired me to be interested in leadership and identified some of those traits that we all develop over time, but pointed that out. After that, I went into a family business. So my first degree is in ornamental horticulture and landscape design. The reason being, my family had a garden center and family business. And the reason I went into the family business, quite frankly, was I fell in love with my wife. It wasn't my wife at the time, but in high school, and the quickest way to get married was to get a job. And that seemed to be the most efficient way to get what I was headed for at the moment. Right. But I was in the family business for about 20 years or so. And along the way, I started another company of my own, an e-commerce company that I spun out of that business where we sold commercial landscape parts all over the country. That grew into a pretty big business. I sold it in 2019.
Amazing.
That journey then with family businesses, my kids got older. I always had a yearning to do more, and I was super interested in supporting small businesses. So I started working with some independent business councils, lobbying to support small business. That led to, why don't I run for public office and be an elected official that can support small businesses through legislation? That didn't work out so well. I ran for office and, I did not win that election, but my platform was noticed by some people at the University of Buffalo that I was associated with, because I did my EMBA, executive MBA there, which led to a job opportunity again. And this led to a second person in my life that was really critically important to me, Courtney Walsh, who saw that I could take these skills that I had and repurpose them and help other people. So I was at the university for a dozen years or so, teaching entrepreneurship, became an assistant dean in the School of Management. Then I'm going to say the final person that influenced my leadership journey to Goodwill was a dean that I worked for at the School of Social Work called Nancy Smith, who saw the connection between entrepreneurship and social work, like how similar the two were, which led me to start to explore more in the university the concept of the entrepreneurial nonprofit. So how can for-profits think more socially, and how can nonprofits think about generating their own revenue? That led to a headhunter recruiting me to Goodwill, which I said no to for months and months and months. I eventually was challenged to, hey, you do this in academia, why don't you come out in the real world and run a social innovative organization, which led me to Goodwill. And that's how I got here today.
What's that thing that someone looked at Thomas? What did people
Yeah.
see in you? Maybe you didn't see it in yourself, but what did they see in you?
I think it's likely that work I was doing at the university, and my work had a fairly high profile in the community just through the nature of working with a lot of business owners.
Okay.
With the entrepreneurial work. I think the other thing that entrepreneurs, the skill set that we perhaps bring, is the ability to build things. And our Goodwill was 100 years old and had a long history, but it was at the point where it was time to innovate again.
Mhm.
And I think entrepreneurs are often good at that, visioning what a future might look like. And, how do we take all this great stuff that was done before and build on it and take it to the next level? So I was brought in after, many leaders before me that did great work at Goodwill.
Uh-huh.
But the question was, where's Goodwill going to go next?
Gotcha.
And I think that, that and maybe I think really the only skill I have that I think of is I love building teams.
Okay.
I really, really love putting teams together and empowering people to do great work together.
Yeah. I love this. I love it. This is great. This is really get excited. I have a lot. But you talked about Goodwill. So you sort of became CEO around 2020, right?
Yeah, that's a story all by itself.
I really want to deal with that because
Yeah.
2020, I mean, this is in the beginning of COVID, and you're talking about innovation and taking it to the next level, but you have to deal with this crisis that's happening right now. How did you manage to get through that crisis? Was this the first time you ever dealt with crisis to this effect?
Yeah.
I mean, this affected globally. This wasn't just seasonal thing or economic thing. This was a global pandemic. How did you navigate through that? And what did you do?
Yeah, that's a great question, a very interesting question. And really quick backstory, I was recruited in the fall of 2019. That whole effort went into, December. I think I signed my letter of intent in January, but told them I couldn't come till May because I wanted to close out the semester.
Yeah.
There wasn't such a thing as COVID when I signed my letter.
Exactly.
Walked in May 1st, 2020. The entire operation was shuttered. None of the stores were open. We had about, I think, around 90 days of cash left. 3 people out of 240 were working.
Wow.
And it was eye-opening. But you go back to all those things you learn over time, and you start thinking about all those leadership and life lessons. Like, what do you do? The first thing you do is don't panic. The first thing you do is, the concept of go slow to go fast. Make sure that you're thinking about the situation. And really my first intuition was like, how do we keep our people safe? Because now we talk about COVID in a very different way. Back then we didn't know. Even when we transferred between CEOs, I think back, it's funny today, but we didn't know. I remember getting the keys handed to me with, tongs from a grill because nobody wanted to touch each other, right? And then sterilizing everything. So I think those skills that you learn as a leader, trying to create calmness, even if you're, stressed out and concerned about things, trying to keep the team safe, keep the team calm, as we look to a vision for the future of the organization. But, also in crisis comes great opportunity. Often. And we really had the opportunity to look at the work we did in the community and look at the community post COVID-19 and what skills did the workforce need post COVID-19. And over a couple of years, we were able to build some new programs that trained people that were displaced by COVID and now training them for jobs in advanced manufacturing and tech, which were economies in our community that needed labor. And so it's helped move people out of maybe, I don't want to say low opportunity jobs. It's not fair to say, but jobs that were maybe in food service and different things that didn't have a very clear career pathward upwards.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've been able to create career paths for individuals where they can enter in advanced manufacturing at an entry-level job and see a pathway up so that they not only can have a job, but they can have great benefits. And then ultimately, a lot of the individuals we work with are from distressed communities, ultimately giving people to the opportunity to create what I like to say is generational wealth. So not just surviving, but thriving. And if we're going to start to change the world and make things right, I think it starts with the opportunity to good jobs, benefits, and that opportunity to make more than maybe just that survival type of wages. So we had a lot of great opportunity to use that crisis to look at what Goodwill could do new in our community based on the needs of today.
Wow, this is amazing. What core principles guide your leadership style, especially through crisis like COVID or, uncertainty, even right now? I mean, uncertain time, especially with a lot of things going on. You have nonprofits, you have a lot of scares with funding. How is your core?
Yeah, I think some of the core principles, I think we all develop philosophies as leaders, right? We all have our individual philosophies. And I think just a few that jump to top of mind for me is one, remembering, in my opinion, leadership is fluid, meaning different types of leadership for different times. So my preferred leadership style, I have great respect for General McChrystal and the concept of team of teams, where we're empowering people. But in a crisis, in the beginning, I had to really do command and control type of leadership, right? We have a crisis. We need to make decisions quickly. So I think that concept of moving between leadership styles based on the needs of what you're in. Another core thing is just being adaptable, especially in the world we live in today of exponential change. Not only COVID, just technology, everything is changing. Communication, I think, is a critical skill for leaders to have to communicate frequently, often, so you can build trust in the organization. And I think one of my top ones that I like to think about is I like to encourage other leaders, make sure you create a compelling big vision. So I know we were talking a little bit about some of your work before, but people are attracted to big visions. And often we underestimate what we can do as human beings. And I love that concept of a leader creating a vision that's a stretch that we can all strive for. And then the final thing I'll say, I think it's really important for leaders to recognize that you constantly have to hold that vision like on a flag, in front of the team. And I'm saying that as a metaphor, but hold it high and talk about it often, because just when we're getting sick of talking about the vision, people are finally starting to hear it. And often people don't move as quickly as sometimes we want people to move or we move. We're all different human beings. And I think we've got to remember that that's our job, is to keep that compelling vision in front of people.
Wow. Man, this is good. This is really good. And I really want to talk. You said something, you keep bringing up team building, team. What are some of the common mistakes you see leaders make?
How about we use me? How's that? Let's just use my mistakes instead of I won't even call them out. I'm going to tell you, I've got a couple stories I think will be helpful. The first mistake that I slip into sometimes is remembering that words matter. Every single word that you speak out of your mouth as a leader has the opportunity to uplift somebody or to stick a knife in them. And I sometimes forget that. And I think with Goodwill, I came in during, you said, a period of great change. The change we were going through was not only due to COVID, but we also internally in the organization had, just when I came in, it shut down a sheltered workshop where for years we served people with disabilities, and we had decided that there were other people in the community that did that business better. But that was the culture of our organization, very family oriented. They had seen the same people show up week after week. And here comes this new guy, this business guy, right?
Yeah.
Talking about change, change, change. And luckily, I'm self-aware enough to have noticed after several weeks that word change was really, I think the word change and loss often go together. When you change things, somebody is feeling loss. So I had to self-correct here and go, I've got to stop using change. And we started talking about evolving then. So we are changing, but we're evolving, sort of like a butterfly, going from a caterpillar to the new needs of Goodwill. So that's one lesson that I'm not happy about. But I'll share with you another one is not mine, but I just wrote a blog post about this, about leadership is about disappointing people, at a rate that they can absorb. And that was a Harvard professor I saw say that. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And the more I looked into it, the more I thought about it, is great leadership requires us to make difficult decisions. And making difficult decisions can be uncomfortable and not always popular. So I think that's really important to remind us that a lot of times we are disappointing people, but if everybody loves everything we do, we're probably not a great leader. And I don't walk around trying to disappoint people. Don't get me wrong. That's not the goal. But knowing that sometimes you're going to do that because you're making decisions not for an individual, but for the whole of the unit or the organism, right? And sometimes those decisions have negative impacts. So I think as a leader, we just want to be careful, in my opinion, that we pace those tough decisions at a rate that our team can absorb, so that we don't have this organization that feels like it's always negative, negative, negative. So related to that, the final lesson I'll share, and then we can move on, is another lesson that my team, senior team, I remind them to tell me, you've got to stop and celebrate wins, little wins. I always am pressing. It's just the nature of who I am. And I often forget about the little wins. And that's so destructive to people, because when you're always pressing, it feels like you're always moving the goalposts instead of celebrating what people are doing. So I've asked my team to make sure, do what you need to do, to say, Tom, take a deep breath. We just did all this great thing as an organization. And we need to celebrate the wins with the team and not push so hard to the next goal.
Knowledge bomb. This is so good. I'm definitely loving this. As far as like team building, what are some of the strategies? Maybe values and philosophies you use as far as developing a team?
That's a great question. And I think, thinking about the type of individuals we're looking for, and one of the things that I always talk to about our team, what we're really looking for as we grow are people that are coachable. So that's sort of a defining moment for me. If someone's not doing great, but if their core values align with our organization, they fit in and they're coachable and we can move them towards success, we want to invest in people like that all day, every single day. The flip side of that is, and I think a lot of organizations struggle with, are that high performing person that gets a lot of stuff done, or maybe is in sales and sells a lot, but does not align with their core values, and they almost become a cancer to the company. As leaders, we're often hesitant to remove those people because they're producing for us. But the truth is, give me 5 coachable people that need work or need development. I'll take that all day over a rock star that's a cancer to organization.
Oh my God.
And I think another area is understand that what gets you here may not get you there. Meaning our organization is growing rapidly. We've tripled in size over the last 4 years. And often the talent that you have, hopefully you're coaching people, you're developing, you're investing in them, but they may not have the experience or the talent to go to the next level. So recognizing that sometimes you have to make some changes, and how do you do that in a very professional way that you're not just, tossing people off the boat, so to speak. So always looking for talent, developing talent, and recognizing that sometimes you have to change talent. And the other thing we talk a lot about here is, it comes from Jim Collins, from Good to Great, but we always talk about, what are the seats on the bus? Do we have the right seats? So is our organizational structure right for where we're going in the future? Do we have the right people in those seats? And if we do, are those people doing the right things right? And what I see a lot of organizations do as you grow and scale, back to, do we have the right people? Often we have loyal people that were with us from the beginning, that perhaps the job is outgrowing them, and we promote people because they're loyal to us, which is a great thing to do, but maybe they don't have the skill set. And then when we don't have those difficult conversations or make those difficult decisions as leaders, ultimately we hurt the organization, but even worse, we hurt the person indirectly, because we put a person in a position to fail. I think another challenge that organizations have is, many individuals associate time on job with what they're being paid. And jobs typically have salary bands. Like, there's a cap to a job, and it doesn't matter that you've been in that job for 20 years. It's like, it's time to get upskilled to another job, or be happy in the job that you have. And I think a lot of Kim Scott's work, a lot of Brene Brown's work, who is right there in Houston, at the University of Houston, where being, I think she says something like, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So really kind of, again, creating that culture where we can have good discussions both up and down. And I guess the best way to describe it is, an annual review should just be a checkbox, because you're doing it every single day.
Gotcha.
Right? So it's not, a lot of people get feedback once a year, and they sit there and they're totally shocked. What I think is the best way to do is to build that constant feedback culture. It also builds trust, where people trust each other and develop each other.
Is there anything as far as team building that's missing in that? You talked about the training, coaching, the feedback. What's some other things?
I think the other thing is, as a leader, knowing what your strengths are and knowing where you need other people. So, I'm a fairly self-aware person. I know what my strengths are. I've already shared with you some of my weaknesses. I'm good at managing chaos. I'm good at building things. I'm often not good at those small people decisions, and I have to make sure my team around me are people that understand that. So many entrepreneurs are visionaries. They're really good at creating a vision. They're not great at operationalizing stuff, if they're telling you the truth. So my secret sauce has always been, make sure I surround myself with people that can do the things that I can't do, and recognize that it's all of us together that create something great. Nobody creates anything alone, in my opinion. And I think that's really important for us to recognize as leaders. Nobody does anything alone. In anything. It requires everybody working together to make that happen. I think too, my coach really stressed to me, don't forget that human beings are emotional beings first. You're really telling a story, and storytelling is so powerful when you let people into your story. And I often think about, behind every face is a story, and we don't know anything about anybody's story. We know about this much. So before we judge people, before we share our opinions, I think we need to share our stories a little bit, right? And realize that we are all, as human beings, we're all created by the same maker. We all share all these things, but we all have all these input in our life that make who we are. We have struggles, we have challenges, we have trauma, some people more than others. And I think take a minute to recognize that we are emotional beings, and behind every person, we only know this little bit of that person. And before we jump too quickly to make judgment, we need to think about what else is there, that we don't know about somebody.
Yeah.
I guess if there's one lesson I learned, if you had to summarize it all up, it's all about people. And it doesn't matter. You can have all the cash in the world. You can have the best strategy in the world. You can have all those pieces. You can have the best buildings. If you don't have people, I believe people are the only competitive advantage that any leader has left. I mean, people override intellectual property. They override everything. Without great people, you've got nothing.
Yeah. Ziegler said, if you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want. And I think
that's a good one.
I didn't understand.
Ziegler had a lot of good stuff.
Yes, he did. Looking ahead, what do you see as the most critical skill or mindset future leaders need to evolving workforce, the landscape?
Yeah, I think the ability to be resilient to changing times and needs, being adaptable and be able to rapidly change what you're doing. So based on the needs of a community, especially if we're talking, it's not just workforce, it's a lot of things. We live in a world today where the speed of change is like no other time in history. It's exponential and it's only getting faster, right? So what we're doing today in workforce may be insignificant 5 years from now. So we're already starting to look at now is how can we use technology not to replace people, but to do more work? Like can we use artificial intelligence for coaching, for, maybe job coaching, interview preparation for different things. So I think, innovation certainly is a big one. Resilience is a big one, and adaptability, and that ability to be adaptable and pay attention to what's going on around you is super, super important. And the last thing I would say is, especially in the nonprofit world, is finding ways to work together so that we're not creating duplicative services. We have less and less funding out there now, and I think that is probably going to continue on at some level. And there's so many nonprofits that compete with each other. If we could just figure out how to strategically partner with each other and be careful not to duplicate what other people are doing in the nonprofit space, I think that's really, really important for the future of workforce development.
Great advice, knowledge bomb. That is so good. That is so good. Thank you. A lot of times we can get caught up in our little bubble or whatever, instead of maybe if somebody else doing the same thing, just support them in what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of trying to do everything or doing this, two people doing something, the same thing, and there's less impact if you can come together and all those different things. What are some of the strategies you see from your thought process where you have individuals within the community, let's say they're working together or they're thinking about working together, and maybe as far as like funding or trying to get funds, maybe they can get more if they come together. What are some of the thoughts around that or experience of things you've seen?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And we actually have a good example that we're part of here in Western New York. I think the effort to build coalitions of workforce providers to work together. So we've done that here in Buffalo. We've brought together multiple nonprofits with businesses, because another thing that's important in workforce development that I didn't mention, if you do not have the businesses at the table helping you develop the curriculum, you're just like dreaming as workforce development, because we need to have them at a table as equal partners to the people that we're working with or helping to hopefully get trained for employment, because we need to train people for what the employers need, not for what we think they need. So we built a coalition here in Buffalo, and we've successfully together, I think we've raised around $30 million, which we would have never been able to do before between all the organizations. We've been able to get some federal funding, some state funding, foundation funding, but we had a coalition meeting about a month ago, and you have businesses there, nonprofits there, and we probably had 60, 70 people in the room from the community that are showing up once a quarter to share ideas, work together. figure out how we can, cooperate, or, in the worst case scenario, I call it co-opetition. Like, if we're going to compete, how do we compete cooperatively?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can't help but compete a little bit. But
Yeah.
I think the formation of coalitions is really important. And the funders like that too, because private funding, layers over the top of government funding, and they can work together to create a synergy, to get a lot more work done. Where often either one alone isn't going to come in, and when you put a coalition together, there's a lot bigger opportunity for funders to show up at the table.
Knowledge bomb. That is so amazing for our nonprofits. I want you to give us one for profit. For profit, what are some strategies around that as far as fundraising?
Yeah, so for profits, you're probably going to be doing equity type of raising, right? Where somebody's going to expect something in return. And I think my advice there would be, if traditionally many small businesses would go to a bank. So there's all that structure with the bank.
Yeah.
But even a bank, they're going to want a business plan, a compelling vision. They're going to want to see how they're going to make money. If you're doing a startup, my advice to people would be, a lot of entrepreneurs have great ideas. You may be venture backed. If you're going to raise money, you better be able to tell the venture capitalists or the people that you're looking for seed funding, you better be able to show them that the customer wants your product. So I think customer discovery is critical if you're going to raise money as an entrepreneurial startup, because many entrepreneurs have a great idea and they want to build it, but it doesn't matter what your great idea is if you don't have a customer. So
no demand.
Make sure you know that people want to buy your product, and develop it around what people want.
Knowledge bomb. Thomas, you're dropping some knowledge on us. I mean, the nonprofit, for profit, I mean, everybody got some notes to take, discussion, especially for small business startups and things like that. I mean, you really drop some $1 million knowledge on us today. And it's just so amazing. Thank you. What are some leadership growth tips, tool advice that you can share with the Lead to Greatness community to help us reach our greatest potential?
Yeah, so I think we talked a lot about having a coach. I think that's really important. I think reflection and journaling, and making sure that as a leader that you're understanding that you're a holistic being. So supporting not only knowledge, but supporting your physical health, your spiritual health.
Yeah.
Making sure you're taking care of all those pieces at the same time. We talked a lot about surrounding yourself with team, making sure you're getting good rest. I think those are all really important. And another tip that I like to do is block scheduling. So making sure that I'm blocking periods of time where, if I'm going to be writing, that I set that time aside, because I find myself, if I don't block things, and the person that helps me with my schedule is really good at checking in on me, going, what are you doing? You should be doing this right now. Holding you accountable to those blocks. Times you find yourself kind of bouncing all over the place and really wasting a lot of time, because you don't have to work 80 hours a week to be effective. Because I think I've done that a lot of my life. And if I look back, I think those 80 hours, probably 40 of them, I wasn't doing what I should be doing. Right. And you get right down to it. Building great teams, we talked about that. And I think another thing is really leaning into that concept of radical candor and getting comfortable with creating a culture where people are continuously learning how to give feedback to develop people are all important.
Knowledge bomb. Man, this is so great. You really helped us today. This really been so informational. And now I'm listening to you, Lead to Greatness audience, listening to you talk. And now we can understand clearly why Goodwill was sorting out to get you over and over again, because you have so much value, so much to offer into the lives of businesses and the lives of the future of the next level. I mean, it's really great. Thank you for everything you've done. If someone wants to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
The easiest way is probably LinkedIn. So it's Thomas Ulbrich, Ulbrich. You can find me on LinkedIn. You could also email me. It's TULBRICH@goodwillwny.org. Both those places. But I just want to say thank you for the conversation. Yeah. And thank you for inviting me on. I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. Hopefully we'll stay in touch and maybe do some things together in the future.
Absolutely. And even for the nonprofit aspect of it, making sure the coalitions, that's something, I wrote it down, something I'm really going to be focused on. I'm pretty sure there's already coalitions probably already in effect, making sure we connect what we're doing, making sure it's the right fit for us, but something that we're doing as we continue to help others reach their greatest potential, together change the world, and also with Meet the Streets, providing resources to poverty-stricken communities. So thank you so much. You really helpful. And I know the Lead to Greatness community is going to be better because of you, because of this interview, because of the value that you have added to us on today. On behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I want to thank you so very much, Thomas, for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
You are welcome, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
We want to thank you for joining us today on the Lead to Greatness podcast. So remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace.